Rounding off the original trilogy, Super Mario Bros. 3 would be the last game in the series to release on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Unlike the previous two sequels we've covered on the channel, Super Mario Bros. 3 was developed from the ground up as a proper successor to the first game. I attempted a playthrough of it years ago with my brother, but our old save file indicates that we never actually finished it, so I'm curious to see how a complete revisit of the game will change my perspective, especially after my recent experience with the earlier titles. Conceptually, Super Mario Bros. 3 is very much a direct continuation of the ideas introduced in the original game. However, there are some elements carried over from Super Mario Bros. 2 as well. Outside of the returning multiplayer mode, Mario is back to being the sole playable character, and the objective is once again to travel to a variety of worlds and eventually save the princess from Bowser. The only noteworthy change to the story is the addition of the Koopalings who replace Bowser as the boss fights at the end of Worlds 1 through 7. Taking a page from Super Mario Bros. 2, worlds are designed following general themes such as Giant Land, Pipe Land, or Dark Land. Complementing this is the massive addition of a world map which is accessed between levels. This map gradually expands as the player completes more and more levels within a world, and it will often diverge into multiple paths, giving the player options to pursue or avoid certain levels and bonus rooms. These bonus rooms include a number of mini-games which award players with helpful items upon completion, some of which are a plethora of new and returning power-ups, including the Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Superstar, as well as the new Super Leaf, Tanuki Suit, P-Wing, Frog Suit, and Hammer Suit. All are useful in their own way, but the most coveted power-ups are the ones that give Mario a tail, allowing him to fly upwards and float down slowly, which greatly lessens the challenge of most stages. While players are more or less led across a set path through these worlds, players have a slight freedom to choose how they progress, which is a breath of fresh air compared to the strict linearity of past games. There are a whopping 90 levels in total, resulting in a much longer adventure despite not everything being required. Multiplayer mode returns a la Super Mario Bros. 1, but instead of competing against each other, players are expected to tag team the adventure by switching off after every level attempt. Luigi technically returns as a playable character, however he has sadly been demoted to being Green Mario again, both aesthetically and mechanically. Needless to say, Super Mario Bros. 3 is a much larger game than its predecessors, and as such, there is a higher risk for it to overstay its welcome without a healthy dose of complexity and variety to keep things consistently entertaining. Having now experienced the game in its entirety, I'm happy to say that it mostly succeeds in this regard. Not only is it thematically rich with plenty of diverse visuals, but it is also mechanically rich with a wonderful movement system and a huge amount of new enemies and stage gimmicks. Mario controls better than ever before, incorporating nearly every ability he's had up to this point, minus the crouching jump from Super Mario Bros. 2. His default jump is noticeably higher and slower, giving players more time to adjust themselves mid-air. He can also bounce higher off enemies by holding down the jump button. Lastly, Mario can slide down slopes by crouching on them, dispatching most enemies on the way down. My only complaint here is that Mario's acceleration can feel a little sluggish when jumping or changing direction, making him floatier than I would like. Otherwise, they addressed nearly every issue from the prior games when crafting Mario's movement, and combining this with the possibilities offered by power-ups lends itself to a truly fantastic moveset, which is by far the best thing about Super Mario Bros. 3. Unfortunately, the enemies and stage mechanics are a huge mixed bag for me. Some enemies like boos or thwomps are fun obstacles to avoid, while others like Cheep Cheeps or Chain Chomps are frustrating due to their relative unpredictability. As for level design, my favorites were unsurprisingly the ones that utilize a variety of Mario's platforming abilities and create a great sense of speed. I didn't really enjoy the stages requiring the player to jump in and out of water, or the overabundance of airship levels. The most egregious stage gimmick is the auto-scroller, where the camera will follow a set path through a level and players are just expected to keep up. There are a lot of stages like this, and the main issue I have with them is that they remove the ability for players to set their own pace, which is a problem when the tempo the game sets is not especially fast. Those who watched my video on Super Mario Bros. 2 may remember that pace killers are a big no-no in a platformer, and sadly, this is far from the only example in Super Mario Bros. 3. There are too many stages requiring the player to enter specific doors or pipes to reach the end, leading to an extended session of trial and error as the timer gradually runs out. This kind of time wasting was my least favorite idea from the original, and the concept returns in full force here. Another issue somewhat related to level design is an occasional lack of visibility. Due to the larger, more detailed sprite work and the limited aspect ratio of the NES, it can be difficult to react to upcoming obstacles when moving at high speeds, particularly when the player has no control over the camera. Much like the first game, Super Mario Bros. 3 will constantly toy with the player's sense of progression. Many items obtained in the bonus rooms can be employed prior to entering a stage, improving the chances of completing it. Beating levels will also unlock barriers and shortcuts in the overworld, minimizing the need to redo stages should you get a game over. On top of having the option to ignore certain stages, the game has a cloud item which can skip some levels entirely. The P-Wing allows Mario to fly freely around the stage, trivializing any and all platforming challenges. Yet despite all of these tools, the game is still quite difficult, and I resorted to using the save state feature more times than I like to admit. While I love the idea of equipping items to gain an advantage, I found some of them questionable in terms of helpfulness. The Superstar item is only active for a short time upon entering a stage, and it's practically useless in the auto-scroller levels since the player has no influence on the flow of gameplay. And any power-up that doesn't give Mario a tail is sort of worthless when the only real hazard is falling off stage. Despite the respectable amount of variety, Super Mario Bros. 3 is also guilty of recycling content more than necessary. The game really loves these canon stages as well as this mini-boss called Boom Boom. You fight this guy 17 times throughout the whole game, and 4 times in World 8 alone. The soundtrack features a decent number of undeniably great tunes, but I have to point out how often they reuse the same 6 or so tracks across 90 levels, and that sort of repetition is tiring to listen to. Super Mario Bros. 3 is no masterpiece, but it is a sizable improvement mainly thanks to its superior movement system. The better implementation of theming combined with the world map are great ways to ground the game world in a sense of realism, an effort I really appreciate. Generally speaking, the game is a triumphant expansion of the series' strengths, even if a good number of its ideas don't impress. I can't wholeheartedly endorse the new ideas when so many of them fail, but there is plenty of new material that genuinely enhances the game, and I do respect the ambition. Unlike Super Mario Bros. 2 or The Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 3 feels like a natural evolution of the winning formula created by the first game, so in that sense it is a perfect sequel. As I look forward to the final installment in this Mario Marathon, my biggest wish for Super Mario World is that it will focus less on innovation and more on polishing the overall experience. And after such a glorious return to form, I have nothing but optimism for the finale.